Ever wonder what it really costs to live in Austin, Texas in 2025? We're not just talking averages, I'm showing you real life costs. I'll take you to the grocery store to see what you're gonna pay for eggs, milk, and other staples in your kitchen. You'll even see my actual utility bills and see what I paid last month to keep the AC on, which may shock you. We'll break down the real costs of buying or renting a home, groceries, utilities, and living your best life in Austin. So if you're thinking about making the move to Austin, this is the video you need. Let's dive in. You know, when I travel, I'm always blown away by how different prices are at the grocery store than they are here in Texas. So I decided I'm going to show you the exact cost. I'm taking you to my local H-E-B. We're gonna check out the price of the most common household groceries, milk, eggs, bread. And if you're not an H-E-B person, we're also jumping over to Whole Foods so we can do a little price comparison. And when we go inside H-E-B, if you're not used to this store, they have something here that you're not gonna find in pretty much any other main grocery store around the country. So let's head inside and check out some of these main prices. We're making our way back. You know that the eggs and milk are always in the back of the store, but I do have to point out, if you're a meat lover, H-E-B is one of the best spots for that. Check out, they've got all sorts of cuts. They've got Wagyu, this is where I shop, the Wagyu and the Prime. But if you don't like either of those, you want to spend a little bit less money, they have grass-fed as well. And then they're natural. So many different options. You usually don't see grocery stores with meat selections like this. Price points all over the place. And I actually was at another H-E-B recently and noticed that the price points fluctuate a little for the same cut of meat. But we're in one of the suburbs right now, still super affordable for great quality meat. Let's go over to the bread and then head back to the dairy. All right, so checking out the first staple is bread. Now there's obviously a wide range of what you can buy for bread, but we're gonna take a look at this store brand. We'll look at whole wheat and white. So if you come over here, whole wheat, you're looking at $1.85 for a loaf of bread, 100% whole wheat. This is the H-E-B brand. Come over here for similar white bread, you're looking at $2.48 a loaf. Now let's see if you shop at Whole Foods, what you're looking at for a step up. All right, so at Whole Foods, the regular whole wheat, the 365 Whole Foods brand, $2.79 per loaf, which isn't that much more than we saw over at H-E-B. And here, they're all out of the white, but the classic white is the same exact price. We saw a little bit price bump over in H-E-B when we went to white bread. So now let's take a look at the eggs. Okay, now for the eggs, which is obviously a controversial subject in the country because of eggflation, whatever you want to call it. But looking at the H-E-B brand, just cage-free large round eggs for a dozen, $4.36. Now, if you're looking for organic, you want to take a little step up. If you come over here, this is kind of the H-E-B Organics brand, $5.86 for a dozen. I go a little crazy with my eggs. I do get like the super organic, pasture-raised, all that. If that's you, then you're looking at closer to $8 for a dozen. Yes, we spend a lot on eggs, but that's what we like. So really options for everybody. But now let's see if you're doing something similar at Whole Foods, what that looks like. Okay, so looking at the same style of eggs, same type of eggs over here at Whole Foods, you're looking at $4.99 for a dozen of just regular extra large brown eggs. Then if you jump up to organic, same Whole Foods brand, you're looking at $6.49 a dozen. Now, just to put this into perspective, in Texas, you're looking at around $5.44 a dozen on average. So everything we saw today for regular eggs is below that. In California, $6.05, Florida, $6.36. So pretty much across the board, you're finding eggs here to be lower than a lot of the states that people are moving here from. Very wide range when it comes to milk products and how you shop for your milk. But to keep it basic, if you look in here, I got our H-E-B gallon of whole milk, $3.22. The reduced fat is the same price, $3.22. It's something, again, that you shop for organic. Come a couple doors over, and you're looking at $5.82, which it looks like it was over $7 for the gallon, and this is a price cut. So not sure where that came from. $7.17 seems like a lot for organic, but again, H-E-B is very affordable. Let's see what Whole Foods looks like. Okay, so for the same type of milk over here at Whole Foods, you're looking at $4.89 for a gallon of whole milk, same for the reduced fat. Now, if you take a step up to organic, $7.19, which is close to what that original price was before that price cut sign we saw at H-E-B. So yeah, definitely more expensive here. But from what I've seen going shopping, like when I go to vacation in Florida, prices here are way, way less. All right, now that you've seen the staples, we can't leave a Texas grocery store without seeing what a big cut of brisket looks like. So this is a trim brisket, $5.99 a pound, which is actually a really good price. So this one for 53 bucks, you can make food for a ton of people. You can go to Costco and sometimes get a little bit better pricing, but this is hard to beat. So if you're in the meat department, if you love smoking, of course we live in Texas, so you gotta be, HEB is a great spot for that. Now, in a minute, I'm gonna show you home prices, not only in Austin, what to expect with buying and renting, but how it compares to a lot of the major cities that people are moving here from. And then you gotta stay tuned because one of the biggest expenses as a homeowner is homeowner's insurance. I'm sitting down with one of the top insurance agents in all of Austin, well, really in the whole country. All right, so when I get coffee, I go straight cold brew. Give you an idea, again, the summer heat, you need cold brew. Here, what you're looking at for 20 ounce, $5.14. Now, you can go places downtown and spend $6, $7, but Summer Moon's one of the local chains here, one of the most popular. We're not getting coffee over at Starbucks. That's too big of a chain and their coffee's not great. Sorry if you disagree, but if you're just getting a regular drip coffee, medium here, which I believe is their 12 ounce, is $3. So from a coffee standpoint, very affordable here, and you can go crazy with some of the drinks here. You got to try the Moon Milk. I'm not a big fan. I like it black, but from an affordability standpoint, very affordable here at Summer Moon. All right, now let's jump into home prices. So you know what the cost of living is in Austin if you're looking to buy or rent a home. First, let's look at purchasing a home. Now, you got to remember, Austin was one of the most affordable cities in the country pre-pandemic, and that has totally changed since then. We saw 2020, 2021, 2022, prices skyrocket so much. Austin really became unaffordable to a lot of people, but good news is since then, prices have slowly, well, in some areas very fast, trickled down. Now, when you look at the peak of 2022 and then where we are now, people say that Austin is way more affordable. Some think it's still a little overinflated. Let's take a look how it compares to the country and some of the major cities that people are moving to Austin from. So first, let's take a look at the Redfin housing market data dashboard. We're strictly looking at median sales price. If you look at all of the Redfin metros, the median sales price is right around $394,000. Now, when you compare that to Austin, let's check out Austin here, 2025. So while we started the year around 440, dipped a little. Again, this is seasonality. As of now, we're right around $452,000. So you already saw around a 15% increase in Austin compared to the rest of the country. Now, how does that compare to the cities people are moving here from? Well, if you compare Austin to Houston and Dallas, which are top 2 out of the top 5 cities that people are moving here from, let's take a look at Houston. So we have that $452,000 sales price as the median in the Austin area. You got to remember, this is the Austin Metro. The city of Austin is going to be much higher, and that's going to go for pretty much all of the markets that I show you now. So when you look at Houston, $341,000. So you see that discrepancy. You know, you might even watch YouTube channels, new construction tours for homes in Houston and think it's way more affordable. Well, I think the proof is in the pudding right here. It is more affordable to live in the Houston area than it is in Austin, a reason why maybe people are choosing Houston over the ATX. So we see Houston being a much more affordable option. Let's take a look at Dallas. So the Dallas, Texas Metro, we saw this peak. Things have come down a little bit. Right now, around $417,000. So you might think Dallas is more expensive than Austin, but according to this chart, from a median sales price standpoint, Austin is still above those 2 major Texas cities. Now, here's where things are going to get interesting, because aside from Dallas and Houston, 2 of the other top 5 major cities that people are moving from here are in, you guessed it, California. So let's take a look at Los Angeles, which came in as the number 3 top market that people are moving to Austin from. The LA Metro up here around $929,000. So about double what you would pay in Austin for a home in California. Now, this is one of the biggest drivers of why people during the pandemic boom moved to Austin from California and why people are still moving. But a lot of them are choosing Dallas and Houston as even more affordable options, because that's where you get these massive 4,000, 5,000 square foot homes at a very affordable price. Now, are there areas around Austin that you can get that? Yes, but being close to the core, even in some of those outskirts like Pflugerville, Cedar Park, Round Rock, Leander, down south Buda, and Kyle, you're still seeing home prices be pretty elevated compared to some of these outskirts of other major cities. So you see LA County coming in way over $900,000. That is not much of a surprise that it was going to be that high. Let's look at San Francisco, the number 4 top spot that people are moving to Austin from. This one's going to blow you away. Almost $1.6 million. That is absolutely insane. For the median price home, we hear this all the time from people like you that calls and say, hey, I've been living in California, whether it's LA or Northern California, where it comes to the point where we just simply can't afford, we're renting forever. That's what we feel like, we're never gonna buy a home. So that's why we're coming to Austin. So, you have Silicon Valley there. Here we've gotten the nickname Silicon Hills. There's some reports, there's been some news articles lately about, is the tech scene in Austin fizzling? Things have definitely changed here, even over the last couple of years, but you could see a lot of people are moving from San Francisco to Austin strictly for affordability. Now, San Jose was also on that list, but to mix it up and not show you another California city, let's look at New York City. New York's another area where a lot of people are moving to Austin from. So up here in the $787,000 range. So still, when you look at Austin compared to some of these major cities, it's still way more affordable. But when you compare it to other cities in Texas, some of the major cities in Texas, it's hard to argue that those areas might be more affordable. Now, I want to pull one more up, San Antonio, which we've had a lot of comparisons, maybe San Antonio becoming the next Austin. I don't think it's going to quite get to that level, obviously, but it's a place that a lot of people have looked as an alternate. Instead of moving to Austin, maybe be close enough, they're still in Texas. San Antonio, $314,000. Again, you can't compare the perks you get and the amenities, the access to things you get in Austin versus San Antonio. However, there's some areas that have really become popular in San Antonio and just north of that in New Braunfels, but you see $314,000, another very affordable option, which is why people are choosing that over the ATX. All right, now quickly, if you're looking to rent, we're only going to take a look at Austin compared to national numbers, but this graph shows where rental rates have been in Austin pretty much since the beginning of this year. So when you take a look, this is for 0 to 1 bedrooms, I guess studios of 1 bedrooms. You're looking at a median asking rent of around $1,300 a month. Now that might seem like a lot. That's similar to what I paid when I first moved here, but that was back in 2013. So here in the pink, this is all bedrooms. So around $1,420 is the asking rental rate for just across the board. 2-bedroom apartments, $1,499, so just under $1,500. And then if you're looking at 3+ bedrooms, $1,841. Now, how does this compare to the national numbers? We'll change this to look at national. And it might be surprising to you that Austin is actually under a lot of these numbers. So nationally, that 0 to 1 bedroom, $1,467. Austin is in the 1,300s. All bedrooms, $1,610 a month. 2 bedrooms, $1,690 a month, and then 3+ bedrooms, $1,997 a month. We've seen rental prices really soften here in the Austin area, and this is reflected in this. So some great deals that you can get in the Austin area if you're strictly looking to rent. Now let's head over to the gas station. I'll show you filling up my car, how much exactly it will cost. So luckily my tank just hit empty, fuel's low, so I'm gonna pretty much get a full fill up here. So in Texas right now, mid 2025, the average gas price is around $2.74 a gallon. Here it's a little bit higher than that, $2.99. So this is going to be a little bit higher than it might be elsewhere. But I've got an SUV. Again, when you're living in Texas, that's diesel. Definitely don't want to put that in my car. When you're living in Texas, you got to drive a big car. It's pretty much a prerequisite. So we're going to see how much it costs me to fill up this entire tank. All right, while we're waiting for this to finish, one of the good things about living in Texas, gas is pretty affordable. Now, when you compare it to some of the other states that, again, a lot of people move here, we're talking New York, which is around $3.11 a gallon right now. California, $4.74 a gallon, and Florida, $3.02 a gallon. So Texas usually comes in way lower than a lot of those major states that people are moving here from. But this is almost done. Well, I hope it's almost done because it's already getting pretty pricey. So let's take a look. All right, so just finished pumping. I'm not always too proud of this when you see how much this costs, but final clock in was $65.03. This is around 22 gallons. That's what it takes to fill up my truck. you know we can't land on a 6503. My OCD will drive me crazy. So we're gonna pump that up to 6505. Actually, let's go 6565. Let's see if I could nail it. Boom. I like seeing that number much better. All right, coming up, I'm going to show you my actual utility bills, what I'm paying each month, especially those peak months here in Austin. And we can't talk cost of living without talking about property taxes here, something that confuses so many people that don't live in Texas. So I'm gonna break that down for you. Let's head out. All right, I'm back to show you what I'm actually paying for my utilities. Now I'm gonna go through electric, gas, and then water, trash, sewer, which is through the city of Austin. I'll also tell you what I'm paying for internet, and I'll give you a look not only at my last month's bill, but what the last year has looked like. Now, I'm in what's probably around an average size home, 3-bed plus an office, 2 bathrooms, and around 2,000 square feet. So obviously these numbers can fluctuate, but this should give you a pretty good baseline for what to expect in the Austin area. Now, I get my power through Pedernales Electric Co-op. It's different than Austin Energy, but prices should be around the same. In this last month in May, which we had a few over 100-degree days in the month of May, but you see around $156 was my electric bill, which might seem shockingly low to you. Now, I'm gonna go through and show you at the peak of what I paid when it got hottest last year, what my electric bill looked like, and it's not too outrageous. So here's that $156 I just showed you, but if you go back earlier this year, 137, 104, 102, down under $100 a month in the months of January and December. Now you'll see that compensated for when I show you my gas bill, because that's how my house is heated in those months. But last year in the late summer and fall months is when we saw the temperature really shoot up. So you can kind of see here, October, $174, $191 in September, $203, so finally getting over $200. And then if you look at the summer months, $206, so last July was where it peaked. We like to keep our house pretty cool. So again, around 2,000 square feet, not outrageous for an electric bill, especially in the heat of the summer. All right, so let's check out my Texas gas service bill, which a lot of fluctuations here because the weather is so nutty here in the Austin area. But the latest bill I had in 2025, May of 2025, was $57, which this is kind of around what I expect in the warmer months of the year. Now, the blue is the 2024 bills. And if you look, you know, those months where it usually gets cold, December, January, February, those are on the higher end. This year was my highest $172 for gas, but you can tell that's not that common. So if you're buying a house, it could be completely powered by electric. You might not even have gas, so your electric bill obviously will be higher, but you won't have this extra expense. So as you can see, last year in the summer months, $47, $44, $41, pretty flat here in the 40s. So not too big of an expense when we're looking at monthly utility charges for gas, but expect when the weather starts getting a little toasty, when the weather starts getting a little colder and you need your house toastier, that gas bill is definitely easily gonna get up over $100. All right, so in true City of Austin fashion, I was having a lot of trouble logging into their online portal. So I'm just pulling out my bank statement here to show you what my latest charges have been. And as you can see, for water, trash, and sewer, pretty much hovering around that 200 to 240 range. As a matter of fact, the average of all of these numbers is $221. So again, not too crazy. I don't water a crazy amount in the summer months. This number usually goes up if we're not getting rain. So be prepared for that if you're watering your lawn a lot. But Austin also does have a lot of, or depending on which city around Austin you live in, has a lot of watering restrictions when it comes to watering your grass. Keep that in mind, but figure a little over $200 a month for water, trash, and sewer. And last, from a utility standpoint, obviously there's a wide range of internet providers that you could use, but I go with Google Fiber. I'm not sure how much this fluctuates from market to market, but here in Austin, I pay $72 a month. Now, Spectrum and AT&T are some of the other companies that are common out here, but if you're going with Google Fiber, figure around $70 a month. All right, here, bring in an expert. We're here with one of the top insurance agents in the whole country, I would say. Marshall Fenton's here to break down some of the numbers for us and give you some insight. So people looking for homeowners insurance, specifically in Austin, what are they looking at?
So the average, for Austin right now is right around $2,800 for the year for home insurance. The state average, so including like Houston and Dallas, where it's going to be a little bit higher, it's $4,100 is the average for home insurance. Last week, I set up somebody with home insurance here in Austin. It was $886. So there's some variances depending on certain things about the house.
Was that new construction?
New construction.
Okay, so yeah, you'll definitely see lower premiums there. That average he gave is kind of in track with, I told you earlier in the video, I live in kind of an average size home here in Austin, and that's right around where mine is. So lower than a lot of these other major cities in Texas, but what are some of the major factors that could bump up that insurance premium, specifically in Austin, or maybe help get it lower?
Yep. So, the main thing is going to be roof age. So, being real cognizant of what that roof age is and, keeping track of it, having like a trusted roofer or referred in to kind of check on things after storms is going to be helpful. Another thing that's become more important is, a fire score on certain properties, where basically, Circle C right now, it's considered kind of wildfire area, where you have these bucket of carriers that we quote out to, half of them don't want to do that. So it kind of lowers, some options that you have there, which can also impact price.
Okay, so roof, wildfire areas, how about flood? Because that's always like an added cost. How does that compare in Austin, compare that to some of the other cities in Texas?
Sure. So in Austin, if you have to get flood insurance for your home, if you're in a flood zone, typically you don't see that a whole lot. But it happens. A lot of people elect not to do it. In Houston, it's the same thing, but a lot of people elect to get it even though they're not in a flood zone, just because it's zoned different. What wasn't developed is now developed, and floods can happen a little bit easier over there than here.
Okay. So one of the big things that you mentioned was the roof thing. We see clients all the time going to buy homes. They get that insurance quote. If their roof is over 10 years old, it's kind of like your key range of what you're looking for. If it's older than that, then it could not only bump up their premium, but their deductible to replace their roof goes way up as well. So costs that you need to keep in mind, especially when you're buying here in Texas. What would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that people make that are buying homes in Austin, I would say, that affect how much they're paying and the type of coverage they get?
Yeah, I think people are, looking at home insurance, I try to explain obviously cost is going to be something you want to try to keep that as low as possible, but making sure you have the right coverage, because, I see it all the time where people get set up with policies they don't really understand, and it's slightly less than the policy that would have fully outfitted them exactly how they need to be. So it's kind of, you don't have to completely understand how home insurance and all of it entails, but knowing the main points of replacement costs for roof and deductibles and what all that means.
And that's why we always recommend reaching out to someone specifically. Hopefully, if you're moving to Austin or really anywhere, you service the whole country. I don't know if you do every state. We can get into that when when people reach out, but having a contact that you ask those questions to and have look if you get other quotes from other companies that you can take a look at to see where you're skimping out on, where they might be skimping out on coverage, not calling call centers and just getting a generic salesperson because they're just trying to get you to sign.
Yeah, and most of the time, we see it from the carriers that we represent. If you do call into the call center, you're talking to somebody that lives in Florida, lives in Phoenix. They're not boots on the ground. They don't understand how it really is. Texas is very unique, and making sure you have certain coverages are more important here than it might be in Florida or Arizona.
Yeah, we hear it all the time for people moving from out of state. So you're moving here, get your insurance premium looked at carefully. Hopefully it's this guy over here. His contact info will be in the description of the video. Appreciate the insight.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, one of the most commonly misunderstood concepts for people moving to Austin, really Texas as a whole, and it cannot be ignored when you're talking about cost of living, is property taxes. In the Austin area, property taxes typically range from around 1.8% to 2.7%, depending on where you live and which taxing districts you fall under. As a quick example, if you live in a $500,000 home, you could be looking at an annual tax bill of anywhere from around $9,000 to over $13,000. Rates can vary based on whether you're inside the city limits, which school district you live in, or if you're in, let's say, a municipal utility district. For example, one of my recent videos on the top South Austin neighborhoods, you saw 3 neighborhoods within around 10 to 15 minutes from each other, but the tax rates range from 1.6% all the way up to 2.7%. Now that 2.7%, that was Easton Park, and that is in one of those MUDs, those municipal utility districts. So you've got to pay attention to the different taxing entities that you fall under in different neighborhoods, because neighborhoods even across the street from each other can vary drastically when it comes to what their property tax rates can be. One thing to remember is if you live in your home as a primary residence, you can file for what's called a homestead exemption. There's actually a few different other exemptions as well that, depending on your age and maybe you have a military background, that you could qualify for, ways to get that taxable value much lower and reduce your property tax bill so the hit isn't as hard. One thing also to consider is that you can protest your taxes because they're reassessed each year. It's something we help clients with each and every year. When they buy, we keep in touch with them following the following years and help them save money on their property taxes. So while from a cost of living standpoint, property taxes are a huge deal, there are ways to keep it much lower. So it is extremely important when you're buying a home here in Austin, Texas. Don't just pay attention to the purchase price. Make sure you are well versed on tax rates and how different areas can vary and how it might affect your total monthly payment. That's what we're always here for, to help guide clients through those steps to make sure they understand what they're getting into. So there you have it, the real scoop of what it actually costs to live in Austin in 2025, from groceries to utilities to taxes to gas. You got it all. If you have additional questions or if you have ideas for future videos, make sure to drop a comment or reach out directly to the team right here at this address, and we'll catch you on the next one.